Good evening, everyone. So, this is another video response to our brother Michael Johnson. Hey there, brother. Thanks again for um, being so, what's the word? Not communicative, but, well, thanks for being diligent and, asking questions. Uh, really like the questions you ask, and I welcome questions from the rest of you guys, uh, especially on such a big and important subject that doesn't really get the attention it really deserves. Um, and really, it doesn't get treated very well or broken down for, you know, new believers or people who aren't really familiar with chronology very well. But, anyways, Michael writes, Shalom, yes, great work, and I can agree to that. 215 years in Egypt and 430 years total in Egypt and Canaan. Now we're even closer with just a 20-year discrepancy. I will be checking out your blog. My next question is, are the 40 years in the wilderness accounted in the rabbi's chronology in the last video? We are missing 20 years somewhere. That's not much considering the time span that is covered, but I'm wondering where the error is coming from. My first guess is that the error is coming from either the discrepancies in dates between the first wave of the Babylonian captivity and the destruction of the first temple, or a issue with the wilderness. What are your thoughts on the now 20-year discrepancy from what was 165 years? So, again, good questions, and I have to admit that I don't quite understand the 20 years you're referencing, unless you mean to ask, unless you're asking like in reference to the fact that, they're about the 420 years from, oh well, hold on, let me see. You said the dates between the first wave of the Babylonian captivity and the destruction of the first temple. Um, well, I mean, let me just answer your first question about the 40 years in the wilderness, and maybe that will clear up whatever you were wondering about the 20 years. So, if you could, please elaborate more on the 20 years, because I'm a little, yeah, I'm not really sure what that is in reference to. But yeah, so let me demonstrate the 40 years in the wilderness. Okay, so the first time we read about the 40 years is in the book of Numbers. And I believe that is Numbers 14. Okay. Or not. Here we go. Spies view the land. So here in Numbers chapter 13, we have a list of the 12 spies and the which of the 12 tribes they come from. Okay, these are the 12 spies Moses chose to go and spy out the land. All right. Um, and then here in verse 25, it says, when they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days. Okay, so they spied out a total of 40 days. And then the people didn't believe. As we read further here, the people rebel. So now God is upset with them. Okay? So this is what he says now. Um, he says that only, let's see. So he says, according in Numbers 14, verse 34, God says, or let's start in verse 33. Your sons shall be shepherds for 40 years in the wilderness, and they will suffer for your unfaithfulness until your corpses lie in the wilderness. According to the number of days which you spied out the land, 40 days. For every day you shall bear your guilt a year, even 40 years, and you will know my opposition. So, out of the 12 spies and all the people, only Joshua and Caleb will be able to go in with their families, because they didn't rebel, and they didn't lose faith in God. Okay? So then later on in the book of Deuteronomy, I believe it's here in chapter 33. No. Oh, no. I think it's in the opening here. Okay, so here it goes. Deuteronomy chapter 2. Okay. So Moses is recounting the journey of the Israelites from the time they came out of Egypt to the time that Moses brought them to the border of the promised land, which is Canaan. Okay, so in Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 13, we read, Now arise and cross over the brook Zered yourselves. So we crossed over the brook Zered. Now the time that it took for us to come from Kadesh Barnea until we crossed over the brook Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of war perished from within the camp, as the Lord had sworn to them. Moreover, in the hand of the Lord was against them to destroy them from within the camp until they all perish. So here Moses says 38 years. Why is that? I thought it's supposed to be 40 years. Well, again, if we turn back to the book of Numbers, it will be, no, it won't be chapter, oh, why did it go to chapter 1? Did I press 1? Okay, so here in Numbers chapter 9, verse 1, we read, Now, thus the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year, after they had come out of the land of Egypt. Okay, so remember, a year before this, the Israelites had celebrated Passover, and so they were already, so the time that Moses freed them when he was 80 years old, they had left Egypt, and they were already in the wilderness for a year. Now, still in the wilderness of Sinai, it is their second year since they came out of Egypt. Okay, so that's why Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 2 says 38 years. Okay, so it's clear that there are 40 years altogether. Okay, now to address this even further, although you didn't ask this part about like the judges or anything like that, I want to show you just how to calculate the years from I want to show you how to calculate the years from the time that Moses freed Israel in his 80th year all the way to the final judge of Israel, who is Samuel. Okay. So for that, open up my blog here. Okay. So here, biblical chronology from Adam to the end of the world, 4430 Anno Mundi, Moses to Saul. Okay. So here I write in order next up we have to account for the time from Moses to Saul. In order to do so correctly, we must understand that 47 years passed from the 80th year of Moses to the 85th year of Caleb. Okay, and then I give the relevant passages. And then 300 years passed from the beginning of Joshua's reign to the beginning of Jephthah as judge over Israel. Therefore, we will not include any judges whose reigns overlap with another judge's reign and does not end the oppression of Israel from their enemies. So here I give those numbers and how you are able to reckon them. So as you could see, what I did was, I found out how old Caleb was. Okay. Oops. So we go to the book of Joshua and go to chapter 14. Okay, here's Caleb's request. Okay. So we go down, down, down. So Caleb goes up to Joshua and reminds him of the promise that Moses made to him for being a faithful spy. So in verse 10 of Judges 14, we read, "Now behold, the Lord has let me live." Wait, hold on. I gotta read back up. Okay, so starting in verse 6, actually. Then the sons of Judah drew near to Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know the word which the Lord spoke to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought word back to him as it was in my heart." Okay? And then he goes over the promise that Moses gave, and then in verse 10, Caleb says, "Now behold, the Lord has let me live, just as he spoke these 45 years, from the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses, when Israel walked in the wilderness, and now behold, I am 85 years old today." Okay? So, super important, super important. So, Caleb is 40 years old when they go to spy out the land. Now, remember, that means when Moses freed the Hebrews from Egypt 2 years back, that makes Caleb 38 years old. Okay? So, beginning from the 80th year of Moses and the 38th year of Caleb, okay, we add 2 years. Okay, Caleb is now 40, Moses 82. And then you add the remaining 38 years in the wilderness for 40 years. All right. Caleb is now 78. Okay. And then Joshua spent 7 years conquering the 7 Canaanite nations. Okay, so plus 7. So that's how you get the 47 years. And then that means Joshua reigned for 26 years. Okay, and then after that, let me just go back to my blog. Okay, so you guys can see these numbers here. All right, and then I list pretty much the enemy kings of Israel and the judges. Okay, and then I have my notes here for this. If you guys want to pause the video and read it closer for yourselves. So pretty much at the end of it, from the time Moses freed the children of Israel from Egypt to the end of Samuel's reign as judge is 511 years. Okay, now this is super important. So let's turn to the next part here. Because I also did promise you that I would show why the 480 years in the Masoretic and the 440 years in the Septuagint are incorrect. Alright, so before I go into that, remember how I told you guys, or remember how we read, like, from Rabbi Schwab's paper, he quoted 1 Kings 6 verse 1? Okay, and it says, "Now it came about in the 480th year after the sons of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord." Okay, so here it's telling us 480 years passed from Moses to the 4th year of Solomon's reign. So that's the source for that in the Masoretic text. Now, as far as the Septuagint goes, let's read what it says. Okay, go back to the table of contents. Okay, go here. So the Septuagint, they list 1st and 2nd Samuel as actually 1st and 2nd Kings. Okay, so that means 3rd and 4th Kings in the Septuagint correspond to 1st and 2nd Kings in the Masoretic. Okay, that's just a quick note on that. Three. Okay. All right. Here goes. So we read, and it came to pass in the 440th year, after the departure of the children of Israel out of Egypt, in the 4th year and 2nd month of the reign of King Solomon over Israel, that the king commanded that they should take great and costly stones for the foundation of the house, and hewn stones. Okay, so right there, we're told it's 440 years in the Septuagint. Okay, for the same event. Now Josephus actually has a different time altogether, and let me show that to you guys. I think this time we'll put 500. Oops. Maybe put in Solomon instead. Hmm. Oh boy. Sorry guys. Um. Ugh. Come on. Oh boy. Okay, here we go. Finally. Ugh. Alright, so let's see. This should be book 2 then? No. I don't know what book that is exactly. Okay, well, regardless, okay, the main thing I wanted to show you guys is this. So, Josephus says, Solomon began to build a temple in the 4th year of his reign on the 2nd month, which the Macedonians call Artemisius and the Hebrews Jur, 592 years after the exodus of Egypt. Okay? Then he goes on and further and he says, but 1,020 years from Abraham's coming out of Mesopotamia into Canaan, and after the deluge, 1,440 years, and from Adam, the first man who was created, until Solomon built a temple, there had passed in all 3,102 years. Okay? Now, let's check these numbers here. So, here I have the list of the kings of Israel and Judah. Okay? And I reckon all their years from Saul down to Madaniah / Zedekiah. Okay? And then below are my notes. All right? Now, here goes King Solomon. Okay? So pretty much the numbers that I use follow the Septuagint and not the Masoretic. And for those of you who want the details on that, please go check out my blog. Okay? Or just post a question and I'll most likely make a response video to you. Okay? So from Adam to the flood, 2,242 years. And then from Abraham to Moses, 1,247. Okay, and then from Moses to Abraham, or Abraham to Moses, 430. And then that brings us to the year 3919. So clearly, we see that this number given here by Josephus, 3,102 years, is already in error. Okay, whether that was by him or the scribes copying this or the translators, who knows? But I will reckon the numbers. Okay, so here from Adam to the time that the Israelites are freed from Egypt are 3,919 years. And then from Moses to Samuel are 511 years, which brings us to the year 4,430 from creation. Okay, so now Saul is the first king, so we add 40 years, 2 years of his son Ishbosheth, and then the 40 and a half years of David, and then we add the 4th year of King Solomon. So from Adam to the 4th year of King Solomon is 4,516 and a half years. Okay, so let's clear that, pull these numbers back up. So we will erase these numbers here from Adam to Abraham. And now we actually have to erase the 430 as well. Okay, so we see that from Moses all the way to the 4th year of Solomon's reign is actually 597.5 years. Okay, or 597 years and 6 months. Okay, so Josephus, out of all of our 3 sources, got the closest. Okay, 597.5 minus Josephus's 592 years, only a 5.5 year discrepancy. If we subtract the 480 from the Masoretic, that's 117.5 year discrepancy, and the 440 from the Septuagint is 157.5 year discrepancy. All right, so that's why it is important to check the numbers and make sure they add up. But anyways, yeah, so that pretty much, I think, does it. You know, because I did promise Mike that, I'd show you why the 480 years in the Masoretic are incorrect and why the 440 years in the Septuagint are also incorrect. But yeah, so we showed how the 40 years in the wilderness are accounted for, and that count is actually included within the time from Moses to the building of Solomon's temple, okay, or the first temple. And let me pull up my blog. Okay, so pretty much, again, the numbers you're going to be adding up are these 511 years here. Okay, and you're going to begin from the 80th year of Moses and the 38th year of Caleb. So these are the numbers, comes out to 511 years. And again, these are the notes explaining the numbers, okay? And then after that, you guys will simply, oops, simply tack on these years here of Saul down to the 4th year of King Solomon. Okay? So 40 plus 2 plus 40.5 plus 4. Okay, so from Saul to the 4th year of Solomon is 86.5 years, or 86 years and 6 months. Okay? Add that to the 511 from Moses to Samuel, and from Moses all the way to Solomon are 597.5 years. Okay? So the 40 years in the wilderness are included within that count. But that's it for this video. Thank you again, Mike, for your questions. Hope this answered your inquiries. If you have any more, again, feel free to ask. And for those of you who are watching, please pose your own questions and I'll be more than happy to answer them.